Hello and welcome to a very special Punters Guide live here from Epsom Downs Racecourse ahead of the Betfred Derby. You can see behind me Betfred adorning the Queen Elizabeth stand and the racecourse here. It is some sight, Frankie.
Looks great, doesn't it? Betfred Derby, what a weekend we've got lined up. 2 great days of racing and 2 great days on course as well. I love being here for this meeting. 2 cracking days compact into a weekend. Fills right up. There'll be a great atmosphere in a couple of hours. And yeah, really looking forward to what's a wide open derby, Matt.
Certainly are, yes. We're going to focus on the Colts Classic. We're going to hear from many of the connections that Frankie's been catching up with as well, but it is an absolutely a brilliant race. 14 set to face the starter. Coolmore, Godolphin, Jonathan de Gosden and Frankie Dettori, Jessica Harrington, all the leading players with runners in the race.
I know, it's a muddle, really, and we're struggling because Auguste Rodin tops the market after completely bombing out in the Guineas. And
he's not lost faith though, has he, Aiden?
He hasn't. I mean, if there's one man to break all the stats, it's Aiden O'Brien, isn't it? And we even saw it with Little Big Bear, who ran no race in the Guineas, and it was the same sort of thing. He took a knock, he didn't have any room, it didn't go to plan, and he came out, and what did he do? He won easily. But I do think the Derby's a very different picture. A sprinter with that raw talent like Little Big Bear can go and just turn it on and be as quick and as kind of fiery as they need to be. The Derby, you've got to relax, and it's a very different story. So it's hard work for the favourite.
We are going to chat about the leading contenders. As you say, we've got Coolmore's got 3 in the race. We've got so many trials winners. We've got a Chester Vars winner, a D Stakes winner, a Dante winner, a Ballysacks winner and an Irish Derby trial winner, all coming together as well to feature in the big race at 1:30 on Saturday afternoon. But let's start with Auguste Rodin. You mentioned the market leader. They were joint favourites after declaration of military order, but strong in the market, Auguste Rodin. Aidan was saying not lost faith. We'll hear from him shortly. Last in the Guineas, though, it's going to be a big turnaround, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it depends how you look at it, because, I mean, if you look at last year's form, he was brilliant. Aiden said that he's still top of the pecking order at home. They think he's an absolutely wonderful horse. And if you put a line through the Guineas and you kind of carried on that trajectory from last year and you take Aiden's word for it, then he does deserve to be up there. He's just hard to back, isn't he? And for me, I'd personally be happy having an each-way bet. And if Auguste Rodin came out and was brilliant and beat me, I don't think I'd be too frustrated. But if I had a bet on a 7-2 favourite that bombed out in the Guineas and he didn't run a race, I'd be kicking myself.
Well, let's hear then from the master of Ballydoyle. He knows what it takes. He's won the Derby on 8 occasions. Can he make it 9th? He's got 3 in the race, but he's not lost the faith with Auguste Rodin.
He was always very natural, slick horse. He's not a big, heavy horse. He's very light on his feet. He's very nimble. I remember when Ryan rode him as a 2-year-old in February, he loved him, and his action was what he loved. He's very athletic. That's all still there. His personality, he's relaxed. He always looked like a horse would love going middle distances, and obviously that's what he's bred to be. So obviously it was a bit of a risk running him in the Guineas, but we felt it was worth taking the risk. And no, he's like he always looked like a horse that would love this kind of a distance on this kind of ground, really. If you'd imagine, good ground is really what he wants. We were nearly not running him in the Racing Post Trophy on soft grounds, but he got away with it that day because I suppose it was a solid, even pace. It wasn't a muddly race. But there's no doubt like good ground or better will suit him better, and there's probably no doubt middle distance have to suit him better.
Well, that's the Coolmore hope, one of 3 in Auguste Rodin, their main hope. But the boys in blue, another big racing operation, Godolphin, have got military order. He won the Lingfield Derby trial. Okay, it was on the all-weather, but if any horse has got the credentials for this, it's him, because his brother won over course of this as they are 2 years ago.
Yeah, like you said, his brother's the Derby winner. He's won over the distance already in the Derby trial. I really like the way that when the second horse, can't remember the name, but came upside him, he battled back. If I know
Waipiro.
Yeah, when he was in the race. When Waipiro came upside him, he had another gear, which that maybe suggests we haven't even seen him to full effect yet. You know, in an even hotter race, can he produce even more? It's just the all-weather surface, which makes me scratch my head a little bit. Not for any reason in the sense that that's a negative in terms of prep, just to see a Derby winner come from the all-weather at Lingfield just seems bizarre.
Certainly is. Well, he's obviously a little bit of a drifter in the market now with the strength behind Auguste Rodin, but if there's going to be one horse that people want to win here at the Betfred Derby, it will be Frankie Dettori, on arrest, of course, in the famous Judmont Silks, which has been carried to victory on a couple of occasions here in the Derby. Work first being the latest in 2010. Could you imagine the scenes in his last ever Betfred Derby? Frankie Dettori was to win it.
Well, he said, we've got the invite to the party anyway.
Oh, brilliant.
So I'm cheering for Frankie.
All over it.
I think he's got a great chance. I mean, it's not just the Frankie factor, not just the fairy tale. I really like Arrest, and it's been talked about he's a soft ground horse, and he went on testing conditions at Chester, so that's what he wants. I don't think that's the case. I think he handled conditions at Chester, and I think the horses in behind maybe flattered him that didn't handle it. But he's galloped here on the ground the same as it will be when he races on Saturday. He's had a look round Epsom. John Gosden's happy with him, Frank's happy with him, he's in good form. I know he's got that big high knee action that people keep talking about, and they say that he's going to really hit the ground hard, but he's only got to do it once round here. And if he gets galloping, I can really see him churning Epsom ground coming down the hill, so I quite fancy him.
There we are then. Well, you should know because you caught up with Frankie himself. Could he be doing a flying dismount at winner's enclosure just over my shoulder at around about 1:40 tomorrow? Let's hear from the Italian himself.
Arrest, he's done nothing wrong. The distance is no problem. Obviously, it goes without saying he's got a bit of a knee action. But we took him around Epsom. He seemed to adapt to it quite well. He looks a wide open Derby to me, and I think I've got as good a chance as anybody. So, yeah, I wouldn't like to swap him with anything else. I'm happy with what I've got. He's always on the up, and I'm sure he's going to show a good account of himself. Draw is fine. They've been winning from everywhere. I mean, back in the day when it was 26 runners, might have made a big difference, but 16 runners, I don't think. I think everybody makes a big fuss about the draw. What you need is a good horse. Simple as that. To win the Epsom Derby, you need a good horse. It's not the draw that makes the difference.
Yeah, great to hear from Frankie, and thanking him for joining us this week. What about some of the other runners then? Passenger, now beaten in the Dante, so one of the horses not coming in off a win. Workforce, when he won for Sir Michael Stout the Derby, he was also beaten in the Dante, and he was very unlucky in that race.
He was, and I'd hope for our Betfred man, Mr. Kingscote, to ride a Derby winner. I mean, it'd be second on the trot, so it'd be fantastic for him. And Desert Crown obviously won the Dante last year, but a similar sort of route in the sense of only running twice Passenger, and one of those being in the Dante before coming here. I'm of the opinion, though, that he wasn't as unlucky as we're making out. He didn't get the ideal trip, and he was travelling nicely, but he did get his opportunity to quicken, and I wasn't overexcited when he did. He will obviously improve for that run, so there's every chance. I mean, they've all got chances. It's super competitive, isn't it? But I say Passenger's one I'm not getting overly excited about, Matt. You might think differently.
I think he's got a huge chance, but not here for me. Let's hear from the man who will take the ride looking for back-to-back derbies. It is Betfred ambassador Richard Kingscote. Third on Passenger in the Dante on Thursday. How did that race ride? Recognised probably the best trial on these shores for the Derby.
Obviously, we said last week, definitely looked like the strongest trial on form. Lots of positives to take out the race, but obviously frustrations as well. Frustrations in myself mainly. My horse ran great, really pleased with him. Showed he's up to a high level. I was pleased with him from the get-go. He was in the stalls a long time, but he jumped well. I asked him to jump, and then he was responsive. Once I got him in behind, he settled nicely, moved through the race well, and then I just couldn't find him a clear passage, really. Once he did find it, he picked up nicely. So he done a lot really well. Things could have gone nicer, but, hopefully it bodes well for Epsom.
Yeah, that was Richard Kingscote on Passenger, who was third in the Dante. The winner of that, though, the Foxes. He looks quite exposed, but he keeps doing the business.
He does. Yeah, he does. The most interesting interview that came out of that for me was Andrew Balding saying they expected to win the Dante, and he was quite keen on him, like more than I expected. As you said, he keeps doing the business and he is exposed, and we've seen a lot of him, which is maybe why we don't get quite as excited, because you want one of these new horses that have run a handful of times and there's a little bit of ability left in them. Foxes, we've seen a lot of him. But Andrew Baldwin said we thought we'd win the Dante and we're going to the Derby, and he was quite straight about it, so he's confident. Asheen Murphy on board. There's lots of positives to take. Again, I might be very, very wrong. I've been wrong before many times, but I don't think the winner of the Derby comes from the Dante. I'm not getting too carried away with any of that Dante form.
Yeah, that also rules out then White Birch from Frankie. Let's hear from the Master Kingsley, Andrew Baldwin himself, as Frankie said, was quite bullish about the Fox's chances.
Fox is just the most professional horse. He's been a star. He's never caused us any sort of anxiety in the way he works. He's always professional, good workhorse, very relaxed out of exercise. Just a lovely horse to have anything to do with. I'd be guessing, but I think he'd handle both the undulations at Epsom and the preliminaries. But I'm guessing. But he's that type of horse. He's very well balanced and has a very relaxed nature. So you'd hope he should handle both those. I think this is a horse that we feel, you win a Dante, I think you're entitled to go to the Derby with a bit of optimism. We'll certainly hope that you're going to run well, and I think, certainly in this horse, it was always the plan over the winter that we were going to target the Dante with a view to going to the Derby, and half the plans worked out so far.
We've got some classic form coming into this Betfred Derby in the shape of the 2000 Guineas 5th Dubai Mile. Now, Charlie Johnson quite clearly said the mile would be at the sharp end for him. He actually beat a rest as a juvenile last year over 10 furlongs. There'll be no issues with the trip for him.
No, there's lots to like about Dubai Mile, including his price. And that's what gets me interested. I mean, I think you're getting a very fair price, considering, like you said, he's beaten a rest, he's raced over the trip, he's performed in France, came back to the Guineas, and we said this before, we said I think they were just having a crack, because why not? It's not going to do any harm to race over the mile, and then he can come here and race over what I think is his preferred trip. So to come 5th in a decent Guineas at a trip that's not optimal is not the worst run in the world coming into the Derby, and as I said, its price is pretty attractive. So Dubai Mile as an each-way bet, I think, is worth a look.
Interesting. So his dad never trained the Betfred Derby winner, but he did have a runner-up, DXB. Can Charlie go one better with Dubai Mile?
No, we haven't needed to do a huge amount since Newmarket. He came out of that very well, and it's just a case of getting him there in one piece now. These big races at the big meetings are what it's all about, and everyone wants to be competitive in them, and to go there with a horse with a realistic chance is it's huge for the whole team. For me, as you say, in my first year, having runners in classics is what it's all about for any trainer. But to have one in your first season and the opportunity to really try and not so much put myself on the map. Thankfully, Dad's done that for me. But to make it clear to people that standards aren't going to slip at all, and that we're going to continue to be successful at the very highest level. This is a great opportunity to try and do that.
Yeah, great to hear from Charlie Johnson there, but it's not just the three Irish runners from Coolmore that represent the Emerald Isle. We've also got White Birch for John Joseph Murphy and Spreewell for Jessica Harrington, who incredibly I think would be the first female trainer to win the Betfred Derby if this was to be successful.
Her second crack at it as well, I think, and she does. I mean, she does a great job at getting horses ready for top level events,
both
doesn't
codes.
she? Yeah, in both codes. And Spreewell is another. I said this at the start. You could like them all and you could fancy them all. But if there were three I were to highlight, it would be Arrest, Spreewell, and Dubai Mile, respective to their prices. I really like the way that Spreewell hit the line at Leopardstown in that Derby trial. And sometimes you get a bit wishy-washy when you start moving away from form. But all of these horses, they do have to improve somewhat, and it all comes together on the day. And if there was a horse in here that I think there's still a bit of ability left in, and it would make sense with the way that she gets her horses ready for these big races, I think Spreewell still has something more to give. And I really like the way he finished his race at Leopardstown.
Well, this man has been doing his best look impression and catching up with all the connections, and Jessica Harrington was also the subject of a Frankie Foster interview.
He's very well in himself. Preparations are going very nicely. We're very happy. We're very happy with him. He did a nice bit of work last week. He's going to work this week now, and then he'll probably do a nice breeze Monday, Tuesday next week before he travels over. Probably travel over Wednesday night.
How impressed were you with that performance at Leopardstown?
I was delighted with how he did it, and I was delighted. He travelled well through the race. He was very relaxed. He came up the outside and quickened up well and hit the what I liked, his last sort of 50 yards was very strong. And it looked like he, really stayed out through the line.
Yeah, great to hear from Jessica Harrington and wish her well, of course, with everything that she's battling at present. Anything else at the price? We've got a couple of unbeaten runs. Artistic Star in here, unbeaten. San Antonio, mentioned the D Stakes winner. King of Steel, who didn't run at the Dante. He'd be a big price. He was a very impressive maiden winner. I mean, there's loads at bigger prices who you can't really discount.
No, you can't. If I was to try and find an angle on any of them, Artistic Star, I sometimes have a look at their RPRs on their first run just to suggest a little bit of ability. I'm sure there's a stat somewhere, which I can't remember off the top of the head, but I think if you run above 90 on your first start, you're in with a decent chance when you come to a classical. When you look back at previous winners, they normally hit the ground running with a good performance. So Artistic Star's shown ability early on, and after just 2 starts, there's got to be more there.
Could be, yeah, unbeaten, as I say, for Rafe Beckett and Rob Hornby, who had Westover finish 3rd in last year's Derby. Right, what wins the 2023 Betfred Derby? We've heard from many of the connections that thankfully you caught up with. Which ones influenced you the most and points you in the direction, hopefully, the winner, which will be entered into that winner's enclosure just behind me?
It's going to be an Irish winner, Spraywell.
Spraywell?
Yeah.
At a price?
At a price, yeah. The 3 for me, Arrest, Spraywell and Dubai Mile. I'd really hope that they're all in the mixer, but Spraywell, yeah, just the way that he hit the line in Leopardstown, I really do think he's got a great chance. So yeah, it could be an Irish winner, or will be for me anyway.
It's a brilliant renewal. It looks a fascinating renewal. So we've got Auguste Rodin, bombed down the Guineas, but he's a Group 1 winning juvenile military order, brother to the 2021 winner Day on the Lingfield Derby trial winner Arrest, the Chester Vase winner, bidding to give Frankie Dettori a sign-off victory in the Betfred Derby. Passenger, the Wood Ditton winner, Luckless in the Dante. We've got Spraywell, the Irish Derby trial winner, the pick of Frankie, the Foxes, the Dante winner, White Birch, the Ballysacks winner, Dubai Mile, a Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud winner and 5th in the Guineas. Waipiro 2nd to military order at Lingfield. Artistic Star unbeaten. San Antonio, the D Stakes winner. King of Steel behind Auguste Rodin, the Verde Maturity after impressive maiden success. Adelaide River, another one for Aiden O'Brien out of Australia, and Dear My Friend, a 2nd string for Charlie Johnson. Andrew Azzini on board. They are your 14 runners. Frankie's with Spraywell. I'm going to keep the faith. I know the Betfred ambassador Richard Kingscote and Sir Michael Stout can make a back-to-back Derby wins. Luckless, I thought, in the Dante. I think he may have his day in the sunshine here at Epsom tomorrow, but I agree. Dubai Mile, I think, has got a massive each-way chance. That 5th in the Guineas was a promising run. So looking forward to it. The 2023 Betfred Derby, 1:30 Saturday afternoon. Cannot wait. It looks a classic renewal.